right, welcome to our stand-up today, and we're going to be going through our game day trivia, and looking at all the answers. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go through this game with some of the answers that I have for you. All right, let's go with sharing my screen. Make sure it's the right one. Here we go. I don't know if you can see it. All right, so welcome to our game day. So we're going to run through this really quickly. So our rules: to be honest, have fun, participate, respect all answers, and keep it light and friendly. So true or false? I'm going to answer all of these in the section true or false. So we had business analysts are primarily involved in managing project budgets and timeline. And the answer here is false. False, because we handle a lot of things, but we're not primarily, and that's the key word here, right? Primarily. We're not primarily managing budgets. That's the project manager who manages the budgets and the timeline. So it's a false. And then business analysts always work in software development environments. Also false, because you don't always work. You mainly work in software development environments, but you could work in process improvement. You could be working in any number of things. So it's not always just software development, although we have a lot of our time spent in software development projects. So that's a false. Keep going. Then we had question 3. Elicitation refers to the process of gathering and clarifying requirements from stakeholders. Exactly. That's true. The answer here is true. You are gathering and clarifying requirements from stakeholders. 4, as a BA, it is rare to work with tight deadlines, ambiguous requirements, or shifting priorities. Nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, as a BA, you're spending a lot of your time in tight deadlines, ambiguous requirements, and shifting priorities for sure. So that will be false. The other one has question 5. As a BA, it is rare to handle production issues or urgent change requests. That is false, because as a BA, you are handling production issues a lot. You're handling urgent change requests. You have to make changes to the sprint because something urgent came up. So this is a very common thing to happen. It's not rare at all. Question 6. Functional requirements are only driven by the business stakeholders. True or false? The answer here is false. So functional requirements are driven by the business and the technical stakeholders. So when you have a business requirement, like we were saying earlier, you have a business requirement, and that could be something you can do with the technical architecture and the designs that you have, or it could be something that the technical team says, yeah, I know you want to do this, but here's a workaround that we can do much faster, much better, and that becomes a part of your functional requirements. So your functional requirements are driven by the business, yes, but also by the technical team. Question 7, elicitation refers to the process of gathering and clarifying requirements from stakeholders. Yep. That is definitely what elicitation refers to. So that's a true for sure. Question 10. A BA is responsible for managing the scope to prevent scope creep. That is true, because you are in the details. You are writing the requirements. You know the most about what's happening at the detail level. So you can manage the scope creep the best. Obviously, you're going to lean on your project manager. You might have architects, developers, but you are owning the requirements, and part of the requirements is if it's in scope or not. So if you end up adding more stuff, you end up with more scope creep, and then your project won't be delivered. So you have to be the gatekeeper for the scope for sure. Question 9. Process flow diagrams are best used to show process steps for system interactions with users. True or false? The answer here is false, because the process flow diagram is the steps, business steps. It doesn't necessarily always best used for system interaction. That's a sequence diagram. Process flow is best used for the process steps. Yes, you could have systems in there, but it's not the best use of it to show system interaction, right? Okay, question 10. In agile, requirements are not always fixed from the beginning of the project. True or false? The answer here is true. Requirements are not always fixed from the beginning. In fact, the fact that it is agile means that you don't have fixed requirements. You kind of just have enough for the sprint, and then it might change, and you adapt new change for the next sprint, right? So it's sprint by sprint, not fixing everything from the beginning. The goal of a BA is to prevent defects by ensuring clarity before development begins. True or false? The answer here is true. So the BA, you want to make everything as clear as possible before they write any line of code, because you want to get your stories in definition of ready. It's very important. Question 12, a BA should never admit mistakes in front of stakeholders. True or false? Obviously false. Why would you be afraid of admitting a mistake? Actually, it humanizes you. If you make a mistake, the quicker you can accept that you made a mistake and take the corrective action, then the better. It's not expected that you're perfect and you never make mistakes. Is that you are able to recover, and be very open about your mistake. And I think it's okay, because the requirements are being done openly. So if you make a mistake, you have to openly explain it so that people don't walk away with the wrong impression, right? So, question 13. Acceptance criteria define what must be true for a user story to be considered complete. So is this true or false? Acceptance criteria define what must be true for a user story to be considered complete. The answer here is true. Yes, that's what an acceptance criteria does. Question 14. A sequence diagram shows how objects or systems change over time. And it sounded good until you got to the word change. So the sequence diagram is not really about the changing of the system. It's interactions between systems. So it's how objects and systems are interacting. What messages are they sending? What responses are they giving over time, and the order in which they're sending these. So that could have been right if it didn't have the word change over time. It should be interact over time. So that, for that reason, has to be false. So messages in sequence diagram always go from left to right. True or false? This is false, because we agree that it goes from left to right when you're sending. But if you're responding, it can go from right to left. So it goes in both directions, right? So on sequence diagrams, messages are the lines that we see that represent the API call. That's a message. So when one system, on the lifeline sends a message to the next system, that line, that horizontal line, represents the message. And it's not via an API call. Okay, so this is the second part of the quiz that we did, and it's choose the best answer. So